Hey, how are you guys tonight? Everybody's good, right? Yeah. And tonight we're going to talk about a simple yet scary concept of ICC profiles for your computer, your printer, your ink set, your paper, your monitor, Photoshop, and how to use them easily. So easily, in fact, that you will hit yourself upside the head when you realize how easy it's been all along. And by doing this, we have the capability of doing what's known as soft proofing in Photoshop. Now, you Lightroom people, you may as well just click off and get out of here because you can't do this. If you want this real power, you gotta invest some time in the Photoshop side of your photo editing toolbox. But it truly is easy, and I find it to be very, very helpful. So, what is an ICC profile? You guys have any idea? It is an electronic text file. It's nothing but a text document with a little bit of Java coding on the top and on the bottom. And in the middle, there's this great big long list of all of the colors and then what they are in terms of brightness and saturation and maybe one other item on your monitor or on your camera or for your printer or for the paper on your printer or the ink set in your printer. And having a calibrated color workflow from your eyeball to that piece of paper at the end, while it seems like it can be complicated, it really is quite simple and easy to accomplish. The first thing that you have to do is you have to select the proper ICC profile built into your camera. And I think that you all have done that. We've talked about that before, but you have to go into the camera settings and make sure that you go to the tools section, and under there it will say color profile. And depending on the camera, you'll have multiple choices, sometimes 3, sometimes 4, but usually 2. And the most 2 common choices you're going to see are sRGB and Adobe 1998. Now, the sRGB is a reduced color profile. And what that means is in the sRGB color space, if you set your camera to that, it's going to cut down the amount of colors that it's capable of recording on the sensor and on your memory card to a smaller amount. And they usually picture these as triangles when they map these profiles. And you'll have your 3 primary colors, 1 on each corner. And the sRGB profile is much smaller than the Adobe RGB, so much so that it can fit inside the Adobe triangle. And it's usually shifted or tilted to one side. So what this really means in terms of us as photographers, that is, if you shoot your camera in the Adobe RGB profile, you're going to capture a lot more colors, a lot more tones, greater saturations than you will if you shoot in the sRGB mode. Now, everybody talks about sRGB. sRGB this, sRGB that, setting the color space of your output prints to sRGB, because most printers out there are sleazy and cheap, and they don't want to do the extra work of profiling the larger gamut of colors that are available in the Adobe RGB profile. Why throw away colors if you don't have to in camera and in computer? Um, Web space, generally speaking, is almost always the sRGB profile, which means it can display less colors. Um, and if you're going to convert a larger profile like Adobe RGB in your image files that you're going to put on Facebook or on your web page to sRGB, and Photoshop will do it for you, and you tell it to convert it from Adobe to S, what's going to happen? It's just going to go in and it's going to throw colors away around the edges and try and turn that triangle so that it fits within the space as best as possible without losing a vast amount of colors. Whether you do it in your computer or whether you let Facebook do it when they display it in their color space online, or whether you let the printer company like Bay Photo out in California convert your Adobe RGB to sRGB profile to printing, or whether they send the Adobe RGB profile image to the printer and the printer does the conversion. It's all pretty much close to being the same. So what I tend to do personally is I set my camera on the Adobe RGB color space, and that's where it lives. And when the cameras finally die, it'll die with that set into them as well. Then I set the color space in Photoshop to Adobe RGB, and I'm going to show you how to do that in just a few minutes. All right. I also can set the printer color space in Photoshop, and I can set the monitor color space in Photoshop. But wait, we didn't talk about monitors, did we? How do we get the monitor calibrated so that we know the color space that the monitor is capable of showing us? Who of you actually calibrate your monitors? Yeah. Peter, I know you're going to. Jimmy, are you going to? You better. I see you. I do, and I've done it for decades. My current profiler, which I've had for about a year now, this is it here. This is from I1 Display, X-Rite, X-R-I-T-E. All right, and this is the I1 profiler, and this is a multi-mode profiler. It has a rotating lid cap that comes down and goes onto the bottom, and there you can see the lens that when you're profiling your monitor, you're going to put it right up on your monitor like this, okay? And it's going to sit flat against the glass, and the cable's going to hold it in place. It has a little movable weight that you can adjust so that it holds it at the right place on your monitor. You're going to download the X-Rite profiling software that is needed for this particular or your particular profiler, and you're going to run it. The profiler has to be plugged in before you run it. It's going to see that the profiler is there. It will come up and it will ask you some basic questions. Do you want to do an automatic profiling of your monitor? Do you want to do a custom profile? I suggest that you do the automatic mode for a while until you get used to it. It's going to do most of your needs for you, okay? It's going to ask you some questions. Do you have adjustments where you can change the contrast and the saturation and the intensity of your monitor? Usually we don't. On an external monitor, we likely will have those controls, but the computer can control that also on that monitor. I generally allow the computer to do so. So I tell it to work in the automatic mode. The next thing is it's going to ask you some other um, questions. It's going to want to know the white point of your monitor, which is a nice way of asking um, what is the white color temperature supposed to be profiled at. Now, what is that? The color of whites can go from warm to cold. Warm has yellows and browns mixed into it, so it has a nice look like approaching sunset, where the light's warmer, more pleasing. Typically, most PCs use a warmer color temperature, okay? And then typically, most Mac people go with a colder color temperature. Instead of the warm tonality in the color white, it makes it colder. It mixes a little blue in it. Even though I run a Mac, I don't like a cold colored white. So I typically would choose somewhere in the middle. And it's going to give you values, somewhere between 150 and 200, 100 to 200. And you're going to have to choose the color temperature, or some profilers call it the white point of your monitor. And if you choose one and you do the profile and it's all done, and then it's going to show you before and after pictures on the screen. And if the after picture is too cold, too blue, then you can always go back and reprofile it again and choose a different white point or color temperature. Okay? When it's done, it's going to ask you if it's okay to save the profile to your computer. Of course, you're going to do that, but don't take the default name. It's going to give you the capability of typing in a ICC monitor profile name on the screen. Type in something that's meaningful. Type in the monitor name, like if you're running dual monitors, you're going to have monitor 1, monitor 2, monitor left, monitor right. I don't know how you do it, but give a specific name so you can identify the profile with the monitor. Also put in the white point, or the color temperature of white in the profile name. Typically, something around 5,000 degrees K is a decent starting point for your color white in the monitor. And as I said, the Mac people tend to go up colder, and the PC people tend to go down warmer. And however you want to do it, it doesn't matter. Okay, it doesn't make a hill of beans, because all of these color profiles are going to work together to shape a workflow in a color consistent fashion that will work for you from camera to printer. Okay, so that's the first thing that you need. Well, actually, it's the second thing. The first thing was to set your camera to Adobe 1998. Then go in and calibrate your monitor. Okay, muy important. All right. And then the second thing will obviously be to go in and set up all of the slots in Photoshop where it wants to know ICC profile names for different things, like for your monitor, for the color space that Adobe is going to work in. Okay, it's going to need to know these things, and I will show you how to do that here in a few minutes as well. Then there is another set of ICC profiles. See, this thing's kind of this big endless loop that goes around the world. Photoshop really needs to know about the profile for the printer ink set, and the printer paper. And your really good printers will also allow you to have a profile generated for sunlight, incandescent light, fluorescent light. because the light that you display your print in is going to make a difference. So if you know you're going to print for someone in a store, and the store is being lit or the hotel is being lit by fluorescent light, you need to do a profile for the printer that handles fluorescent light, because it will change how the colors look when it gets into the building they're going to. Okay? Now, how do you get those profiles? Well, you can buy a profiler like this. Well, not like this, another one. This one will do your monitor, and it will do projectors, and it does room light. By room light, I mean after you have created your profile for your computer monitor and you're all done, it's been written to the computer and it's been activated, then you put this white panel back over the lens again, leave it plugged into your computer, and set it to the side. And as the ambient light in the room changes, it will adjust the brightness of your monitor accordingly so that it's always the same according to the light that you're watching in. Okay? That makes sense?
No, I have a question.
Okay.
So you're saying leave it plugged in all the time?
Well, it depends on which model you have.
I have that model.
All right, then if you leave it plugged in, the software associated with this will constantly sample the room light. You'll see it flash. Every once in a while, the light on the side of it will come on. On this, the light's right here.
Yes.
It will flash, and that means that the computer is taking a snapshot of the room light, and it's going to adjust the monitor accordingly as the light.
Leave it plugged in.
Yep, leave it plugged in if you can. You can turn your mic on. I can see it, but I can't hear you.
All right. Would that be this light here on this? I guess.
Yeah. Which profiler do you have?
It's a Spider 5 Express.
Okay. Yeah. I do not know if the Spider has this capability built in. It might.
All right.
But when you profile your monitor, it will tell you, do you want to leave it plugged in? Sure, you have to do the same thing to your software. As it's finishing its profile, one of the last things it's going to ask you is, do you want to constantly monitor the room ambient light? And if you say yes, then it's going to install a little bit of software on the computer that whenever the profiler is plugged in to the USB port, it will automatically monitor the ambient light and adjust your monitors for you on the fly.
Is there a recommended place on your table or desk to put it so that it balances with what the computer's getting?
No, it doesn't care about the computer.
Okay.
This diffuses. This is a diffuser built in.
Right.
It will diffuse the room light and average it, just like an average meter does. Okay. Now, another thing that you need to be aware of, modern LED or LCD monitors. Of course, that's a misnomer. There's no such thing as a modern LCD. All of the modern monitors are LED. As you reach out and you change the viewing angle of that monitor by, like me doing this, it changes the contrast ratio in the monitor. It's designed to look at it from one particular angle. And if you change that angle, it's going to change. I mean, do you see the color temperature of my skin changing? I can. So a trick to make sure that you always have the same angle is whatever angle you set the screen up initially when you're doing the calibration, cut a piece of string and measure it from the edge of the mouse pad in the front of the computer to the top of the display, so that you know where to adjust the display to, so that the angle's always the same. That's just a little trick for making sure that that's always set correctly, okay? Any questions? Okay, well, it's easy enough. Excuse me. So, the next thing that you need to be aware of is where you get the profiles for the printer, the inkset, and the papers, and where they're supposed to be installed on your computer. Okay? If you do a Google search, for instance, I for a Mac, I typed in where on a MacBook OS X are the ICC profiles saved. It'll take you to a little tutorial that shows you how to get right to yours. So let me share my screen now, okay? Anybody have any questions before I do this? Okay. So on a Mac, this is where everything is saved at. Let me increase the size of this. So if we go under the Macintosh HD hard drive, and then we go to library, and then we go down to color sync, and then we go to profiles, it drops us into a directory where all of the profiles are hidden. Okay? Now, if there are directories in the profiles directory, the software will go down the directory change and find all of the ICC profiles. So notice, they have lots and lots of profiles. I mean, here's the srgb.icc. ICC stands for International Color Consortium. Here's wide gamut RGB, web safe. And these are there's profiles hidden all over the place. And I just took a snapshot of this file tree. For my displays, they're in a display directory. And there it has my two displays. It has the display for the laptop, and it has a display for my Thunderbolt monitor, which is on the side of my desk. So when I'm running a 2-monitor system, okay. Then these are the printer profiles. Okay. For instance, I am running an Epson. Let's see, what am I running currently? An Epson 7900. So any Epson printer, the 99 or the 79 large format printers use the same profile. So they say EP for Epson, X, which stands for the first character, 7 or 9. In my case, it would stand for the 7 and then 9. So these are for the 7900 and the 99. So what they are, let's just look at some of these, okay? And these are kind of shrunk down. Actually, let me get rid of this screen, and we'll just go right in, and I'll bring this up live, okay? So I go Macintosh HD, library, color sync, profiles. So let's expand this page. Here are my displays, color LCD, and my Thunderbolt. These are for mine. They have recommended profiles. Okay, here's the Adobe RGB 1998, which is the color space that we're going to run Photoshop in. And then under profiles, these are my printer profiles. So now let me expand this so that you can see these. Now, this is, again, the Epson 7900. MK stands for matte black. Okay. And that doesn't mean I'm printing black and white. It's black ink for matte paper. Down here are grayscale. These are for our black and white prints, okay? And then here, PK, this is for photo black. This is for glossy black. I rarely use the glossy ink in my printer unless I'm printing grayscale. And then the grayscale uses both the glossy and the matte and the light gray and the light gray to mix for good black and whites, okay? So, so here's one. Epson 7900 matte black ink set, Hahnemuhl, William Turner, okay? Our day, this stands for daylight. This means sun, okay? And when I go to the Epson site or the image print site to download the profiles that I print with, you tell it what printer, whether you're printing with glossy paper, whether you're printing for matte paper, whether you're printing black and white, and then it'll take you down and you can pick the papers and you can pick the light that they're going to be displayed in. So these are currently the papers that I print in my studio right now. These are the profiles I keep on hand. But I can go download more or newer updated versions as they come out, okay? So when you download your printer profiles, you just drop them in to the ColorSync profiles, and then you can drop them in here, you can drop them in the profiles directory, it doesn't matter. Photoshop will find them, okay? Now, the locations are going to be different for a PC. But if you do the Google search like I told you before, and instead of a Mac, type in PC, Windows, whatever version of Windows you're running, color profile location. And it'll bring you up to videos that show you how to navigate this, or to bring you up to tutorials that show you where these go as well, okay? Now, it wasn't that long ago where you also had to put copies of these profiles in the Photoshop directory. Finally, Photoshop got smart. The people at Adobe, and you no longer have to do that. They will go to the operating system profile directly now to find the profiles that are necessary to do the print job. Okay, so before we move on, are there any questions so far? Jimmy?
Yes, sir. I do.
We will come back to Jimmy. Carl?
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, sorry. I have no questions, and I do calibrate.
Okay. Do you understand the directory structures that I've been talking about?
I'm going to have to rewatch this video. I missed a bunch of it trying to get up to it, but yeah,
Right.
I watched the last little bit of it with you.
Believe it or not, that finding what directory these profiles live in is the hardest thing. And you can watch a video or read a tutorial online, and it'll tell you exactly what to do and what mouse clicks to make to get there.
Okay.
And when you download your printer profiles, for those of you who print, you need to know where to put these. The color profiler, this thing will automatically put it in the right spot. Now, what about those of you who do not print?
That would be me. I use Bay Photo.
All right, then you call Bay Photo and you don't take no for an answer, okay? You tell them that you want the printer profile for the ink and the paper that you're going to have printed, and you need it to put into your Photoshop for soft proofing. You tell them that you must have it, okay?
All right.
And if they don't give you a profile, that means they're not color calibrating their workflow. And that's a warning sign to look for another place.
They used to have it on their website, but I haven't found it in the last year.
Okay, so that would be worth contacting them over. Peter, who do you print through?
I found this place in Canada called Pictorum. Just the prices were good. Somebody recommended it.
Okay, so
But I haven't gotten anything yet. I ordered a canvas.
all right. Well, if you find that you like their work, okay, and you don't mind paying the import and postage fees from a foreign country, then you contact them and you tell them that you must have the ink or the printer profiles for the inks that you choose for the papers.
Okay.
Okay, and the papers are going to change the profiles because the papers will change the black inks that are used in printing.
Now, doesn't the paper companies have their printer profiles? Their paper profiles?
Yep. And there is indeed a chance that you can get that as well. The paper companies will provide profiles
Yeah.
for Epson printers, HP printers. Okay, they will provide profiles as well. Now they're not going to be dead on accurate, but they're going to get you in the ballpark, which is a big deal. Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
So,
Sherry, do you have any questions?
No, not about that. It's just making sure that when I set up my colors with the profile, when they print it, it looks the same.
Yeah.
That's the biggie.
And we're coming to that. That's the next thing we're going to do. We're going to set up Photoshop next. Peter, you have another question.
yeah, so let's say I talk to Bay Photo and they give it to me. So is that their profile I'm gonna enter into Photoshop then?
Yeah, I'm going to. It goes in a different place, and I'm going to show you where they go.
Okay.
All right. So you guys ready to move on?
Yep.
Okay. So here, let me share the screen again. Okay. So you've got my desktop now. Yes.
Yes.
Well, yeah. Once in a while, someone's got to talk to me, so I know I'm still online.
Yes. Yes.
All right. So I'm going to go. And I am going to select one of the images from today that we did for Manny's critique hangout, okay? And I think we're just going to use the pipe organ, okay? I'm going to open it. I'm going to drop it into Photoshop so we have an image displayed. All right. Now, here is where we set our profiles up. If you look, Photoshop has preferences, okay? Believe it or not, this is not where the color stuff goes, but you need to go through and set up your preferences as well and how you like Photoshop to look, okay? The color profiling comes under Edit, and you go down to Color Settings. And it's going to bring up the settings window. Now, there's a couple things that we need to do. Okay. We need to set up our workspace. This is where you're going to choose Adobe RGB 1998. This isn't the color profile we're going to print in. It isn't the color profile we're going to really work in, but it's the color profile that the color engine is working in. It's going to take the color profile from the camera image file. It's going to take the color profile for the monitor. It's going to take the color profile for the printer, the ink set, the paper, and the viewing. And it's going to meld them all together and display the image that you're editing on your computer as what you would see on the paper. Now, it's not going to be dead on accurate, but it's going to be close. So can all of you all see my screen? Yes?
Yes. Yes.
Okay. Alert me if it goes away and you start seeing other people, please. The other working space is CYMK. You don't need to worry about. And the dot gain 20% is good for grayscale. Okay. Now you need to go down, and for color management policies, you need to select what we're going to do. So for RGB, you're going to select the down arrow, and you're going to tell it that if it isn't already there, you're going to convert it to the workspace, which is Adobe RGB 1998. Every single image that comes in from your camera should have this built into it. And if it doesn't, Photoshop will tell you, and it will change it for you. Not just change the name, but actually convert from what it is to where it's at, where you want it to be, okay? Now, if you want it to alert you that there's a problem from one of your cameras, and if it sees a profile mismatch, meaning the camera profile doesn't match the Adobe 1998, if you click on this, it will tell you to ask you and notify you if there is a problem with the camera profile coming in. Okay? These are good things to have turned on. All right? Now, there's an intent up here that needs to be set. The engine should be set to Adobe Ace. The intent, we have lots of choices here. We have perceptual, saturation, relative colorimetric, and absolute colorimetric. For our purposes in photography, we're going to set it to perceptual. Okay? Should you choose absolute colorimetric, whatever falls out of the color model, the gamut, the Adobe RGB, or the sRGB, it's going to throw those colors away. If you set it to relative colorimetric, it is going to try and squeeze the color space to fit within this color space, which is your workspace color space. Okay? Perceptual means give us the best looking colors for the human eye. All right? Once you're done, once you've set these few items up, you say, okay, and it will set it up for this session, or you can save it, okay? And this will be something that you can come back to, and you can say, Photoshop color setup. And then for some reason, if it goes away, you can go back and reselect this and not have to go through this setup again. But OK is going to plug it into Photoshop, and it should stay there. Now, I want you to notice one more thing. You see the very bottom of the screen, how we have this darker gray against a darker gray here. It comes down and it comes across the bottom. You see down here with this right arrow, if you click on that right arrow, you can show what it's going to, you choose what it's going to show you here. It can tell you layer count, smart objects, your current tool efficiency, document sizes, or profile. Select profile, and it will tell you what the current profile of the image from the camera is. So we know that this was Manny's image from today's critique. And it came in with an sRGB profile, which is wrong. And it came in as 8 bits per color, which is also wrong. Okay? So now I need to know the next time I talk to him that he needs to change both of these in camera and in his raw converter. If you set up your raw converter one time, it will remember it, okay? So since this is important, let's go look at that real quick. I'm going to open Adobe.
Question,
Yes,
what should we set it to?
it should always be set to Adobe RGB 1998.
That where the arrow is down there, it should
Yeah.
say 32-bit.
Yes. This is not where you set anything. This is telling you what came in from the camera or the raw converter. If you're not,
So I don't have to put 32-bit or anything like that.
you do in your raw converter, and we're gonna do that right now.
So because mine is showing document size.
Yeah, if you click on the arrow, then you can choose profile, and that's what you should have set.
I don't even show profile on here.
What do you show in Photoshop?
It shows document. Oh, I don't read well. Okay,
It should be the second one down from the top.
I got it. Thank you. Sorry,
Don't be sorry.
missed that
So-
one completely.
So Mark, it's 32-bit, not 16-bit?
No, it needs to be 16-bit.
Okay, all right.
All right, 32 bits in the realm of working in the HDR. So let me go grab, to set this in Adobe's ACR, the raw converter, we have to open a raw file. That's the only time that you can set this. So let me go grab a raw file. Where? See, I never go in here for this. Okay, so I'm going to go into where my raw library is. It's under users, Mark, pictures. Raw image library, capture. Let's take a Sony file. And we will grab just a raw file. I'm going to open it in Photoshop, and it's going to drop it into the raw converter. See? Yeah, I know they just upgraded the raw converter today. There's an update. All right. So things that we need to set here is we need to go in, and down here at the bottom, if you're using Adobe, see where it says the profile and the bits and the size? Simply click on this, and it brings the setup window. So here you're going to set Adobe RGB 1998. You're going to set the 8 bits to 16 bits, okay. And the resolution to 300. You don't need to do anything else. Color space to Adobe RGB 1998. Depth 16 bits per channel. Resolution 300. That's all you got to do. And then say, okay. It is now saved there. See down here? This tells me if I do a raw conversion here, now it's going to be Adobe RGB 1998, 16 bits, 300 DPI. This will stay there. You should never have to set that up again. All right. Then you go in and you do your basic raw editing. Okay. Vibrance will bring the color up a little. And then when I'm done, I say, open image. It's going to do that raw conversion. And now when it comes into Photoshop, let me close that other file. Notice down here at the bottom, it says that that's Adobe RGB 1998, 16 bits per color, okay? This computer is now set up. We have set up the raw converter. We set up the color settings here under Edit, Color Settings. It's important, the workspace needs to be Adobe RGB 1998. Policies, convert any mismatch camera file to the workspace. Tell me if there's a mismatch, or tell me if there's a missing profile. You might be editing somebody else's, and you want theirs to come into the correct color space, okay? Intent needs to be perceptual. Okay, so now you think we can go in and do our editing, right? Well, Adobe has something called soft proofing. It's up here under the View menu right here. If we click on View and then go down to Proof Setup and then go over to Custom and click on Custom, okay? It's going to come up with this little display, okay? Make sure it says Perceptual here. And then you're going to go and you're going to choose that color profile you downloaded from the printer company. So let's look and see. If I choose Canvas Matte Black, now watch the colors of the picture as I click on this. See them change? This is now simulating the printer. And as I go and change these proofing profiles, these colors and contrasts and tones are all going to change, okay? And these changes, these are valid. Okay, let's go choose something that I normally do. Hanamule, Hanamule, Hanamule. So many choices. Okay. LexJet, Sunset. Oh, photometallic. Let's look at that one. That's a grayscale. See, it can profile grayscales too. This is an amazing editing tool, okay? We'll go back up into the color world. And I'm going to choose Epson Enhanced Matte Paper. Okay. And then I'm going to say, okay, now, if you wanted to simulate the paper color better, you click on Simulate Paper Color. If you want to simulate the black ink, click on that. I find that the profile is best because it has both of these built into the profile, okay? So you're going to say, you click on the OK button, and now up here in the file name, beside it, it has written the simulation profile. So here's the file name, it ends here, okay? And up right next to it, it says you are now editing while you're simulating the Epson 7900 printer using matte black ink set, printing on the Epson Enhanced Matte Photo Paper. Okay, so now when we're doing our editing, for instance, if we go in and we do any editing on this silly thing, let's go into one of the nicks, okay? And we'll just do something really simple and dumb. As soon as this loads up. Yeah, my printer's running a little slow because we're streaming. And I'm going to just select tonal contrast, and I'm going to take the defaults, and I'm going to say, okay. Now, even though the NIC filters are not profiling in the NIC filter window, as soon as we drop them back into Photoshop, the profile will be applied. There it is. Nice change. And we are profiling the ink, the printer, and the paper. So as we go in and we make adjustments to this, okay, we bring up an adjustment layer. Let's play, well, let's just do something simple like levels, okay? If I change my white point and my black point, all right, it's simulating the change as viewed from the printer, okay? We change our histogram here. We'll bring this down a bit here. We'll change our center point to make it moody. Okay, and we'll say done with that. Let's do one more. What should we do? Let's do hue and saturation. So if I bump my saturation up, it is being simulated by this printer paper ink profile. So what we're doing is we are changing this according to what the printer is capable of doing. So now I can go in and I can adjust the blues, the cyans. I can change the hue. I can change the saturation. I can bring, and I'm working on this cracked paint right here, okay? I can lighten it up, bring the saturation up again. Okay, not too gaudy. And it is being emulated. This is a printer simulation. And this is how we do our editing in Photoshop that's going to get us in the same ballpark as that printer is going to get it out on the paper. Now, is it totally accurate? Of course not. But it is as close as you are able to get with today's color technology. And trust me, it is way better than not doing the proof settings by profile. And if I change this now, see the colors change again. If I decide I'm going to print this on a different paper, it's going to show me what it looks like. Okay.
This is really cool.
Okay.
For anything that's not displayed, all images should be done this way if you know the paper you're going to use.
Well, it's more than just the paper. You have to know the printer and the ink set. Are you using matte inks or glossy inks? You have to, and this is going to get you close to it. This is why it is so utterly important to demand that your print service provides you these profiles. Now, if they don't have profiles, and if they're not printing with a raster image processor, a RIP, RIP, ask them if they're printing with a RIP. If they are, they do have the profiles, and you have to demand them, okay?
Right.
If they're not using a RIP, and very few companies do because they are ungodly expensive, ask what printer they're using and what papers they're using. And then you can go to, for instance, they're printing with Epsons, and they have an Epson 9900 or 9900 printer. And you can go to the Epson website and you can download the profiles for the Epson 9900 for the Epson papers. You can download them all. If they're printing on Hahnemühle papers, you can go get those profiles. If they're printing on burger papers, you can get those profiles. Okay, if they're printing on that funky Canadian paper company's paper, you can go get those profiles, okay? And then you can still profile in your computer.
Right.
Jimmy, come forth. Before I go,
All right, I got you. Sorry.
what print? I know you're doing your own printing. What are you using?
I have yet to set it up. I have a Canon Pixma Pro 10.
All right. So you need to go and get the Canon Pixma Pro 10 ICC profiles. Did it come with an installation CD?
I haven't even opened the box. I didn't want to open it and hook it up until I got the new computer built.
All right.
And then I have to take care of some of this clutter so I can get a table built to hold the computer and printer.
All right. Usually, if it's a reputable company, the profiles will be on the installation disk, but they won't install onto your computer. You have to go onto the disk and find them.
Okay.
They're always going to end in .icc or .icm. If you find files like that, you want to suck them off the installation disk and put them on your desktop and then install them like we talked about earlier in the video.
Okay.
Okay? Questions from anybody?
Well, I just wanted to tell Carl, I have Bay Photo's profile in my computer. It's called Bay Viewing, _1E10. And if you type in Bay Photo ICCs, it'll come up with that one. And I use their row. So I think the row puts it in on my computer.
Yeah, I also have the row. So
So you probably have it. It's just, you
okay,
just look
excellent.
at it. It'll say Bay Viewing on there.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, but you see, there needs to be more than one profile. If you print a matte print, it's a different profile for printing a glossy print.
Right, I understand what you're saying.
Well, that's the only thing on their website they're using.
Then you need to call them and ask why. All right. And if they can't provide you with one, ask what printer they're using, and are they using a raster image processor, because that changes the profiles. If they're not using a raster image processor or RIP, then you can get the printer profiles for the printer papers, like from Epson or Canon, okay, or Hewlett Packard. But sometimes you got to really dig deep to find these profiles, because there are not that many people in the world that are serious about profiling their image work so that they get good output prints, and they know that they're editing in the color space of the printer and the paper while they're on Photoshop. And being able to see that emulation in Photoshop is a really big deal.
Okay, the other question is, when you're printing on metal, how does the ICCs work for that?
There's ICC profiles for those too.
For the metals, okay.
Yeah. I use a RIP to print, okay?
Okay.
I learned a long time ago that the best prints come from the print companies that use raster image processors. There are literally, my RIP is from a company called Image Print. Now they're down in Florida, and they literally have thousands upon thousands of profiles. And every time you buy an image print license, they will give you 3 custom profiles for free. You just have to send them, 10 sheets of the paper. that it's going to print on the printer on, and they will create the profile for you.
Mark,
Yes.
when I'm not looking to print something, I just work in the profile from the monitor, or?
Well, if you think that you're going to print at Bay Photo, then you need to find out what profile they're using. Okay.
Right, but let's just say I'm not gonna, let's just say I'm doing a bunch of photos. I'm not planning on printing.
Then just use the monitor profile.
Okay.
All right, but still set the camera up to Adobe RGB 1998. Set Photoshop up to Adobe RGB 1998 for the color space profile. Okay.
Yeah.
And profile your monitor with your device. Okay. Now, this was a lot to ingest at one time. That's why we were recording the video. And I will make this available probably tomorrow after Facebook crunches on it. Hopefully this came out good. I don't see why it wouldn't. And we can always revisit this again. But you saw the impact of soft proofing on Photoshop. You saw the colors change.
I do have one more question. So, if I'm looking to buy a print would the person, a lay person that's looking at the print, would they see okay. Not sure what that means.
Photoshop.
No, I'm saying that if I'm buying a print that's been calibrated, all right. So is there so I guess I know as doing the printing that the colors are going to be right on.
Well, they're not going to be right on. They're going to be
not right on. But if I'm buying a print that's been calibrated, is there like will it look different to me? You know what I mean?
Yeah, you have to get whoever you're paying to print your print for you. You need to get the printer ICC profile for the paper from them, so that when you're editing the picture before you send it to them, you can edit as it's going to look on the paper as it comes out of the printer. Okay.
Yep.
So if you're going to print something at a commercial company, call them up and ask them for their profile for the printer and the paper.
Was that your question? Because I thought the question was a little bit different than what you're asking.
It was.
Oh, well then try again.
No, they're not going to know the difference. You're going to know the difference because
Right.
you're the one that created the picture.
Okay. Yeah. I know it's kind of a silly question, but I was just
No.
curious.
They wouldn't know because you're the one that knows the colors. They're just looking at it from what they see at that moment.
Yeah. Thank you.
Apparently I missed the point of that question, huh?
I meant if I'm a consumer buying a print that's been calibrated, not as a photographer. If I'm buying a print,
They could care less.
right? That's what I was asking.
Oh, yeah. No, this whole process is so that when you edit a picture and send it off to Bay Photo and they send it back to you, and then you hold it up in front of your computer and it doesn't look anything like your computer showed you. That's to keep you from pulling what hair left out. See, I don't have much hair. That's why I got a rip and I profile everything. Okay. Any other questions? Well, that's it for how to set up color profiling and how to do soft proofing on your computer. Pretty cool, huh?
Yeah, I can't wait. to watch it change on your computer is pretty interesting.
Yeah, it is. It is indeed. All right. Well, I thank you for attending. I'm going to stop the broadcast.